How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Benjamin Sullivan, Curse's lead editor here at E3. I'm here with the dev gentlemen for Eve and Dust. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I'm John Lander. I'm the senior producer of EVE Online.
And I'm Matt Lemar. I'm the creative director on Dust 514.
Great, so we'll get straight to the cool questions. And so first question, with the previous success you've had on the PC with developing Eve, why did you decide to make the jump to PS3 for Dust?
Well, we wanted to reach new audiences. We wanted to expand the reach of the brand and of the game and invite more people to experience it with us and the existing Eve community. And we also found a very good partner in Sony. They've helped us a lot in kind of understanding how their market works and stuff like that. So.
Great stuff. So with these two audiences sort of separated from each other, how are you hoping they will interact?
In many, many different ways. It's the interaction between the communities and between people in the games is really what kind of drives everything that we do. So we've just done a big Eve release, Inferno, which came out at end of May, and we put the real sort of the building blocks for how the communities will interact when Dust goes live. So we did a big revamp of our factional warfare feature, which is how you fight for the NPC factions that sort of run the Eve universe. And so by Eve players will be able to take solar systems as part of the battle against their enemies. That's had a huge uptake in participation since we released it. And then when Dust comes online, as well as having sort of epic space battles, you're also going to have people in these solar systems fighting on the planets, all fighting towards the same cause as their buddies up in space. And that kind of coordination and that organization is how those communities will start really feeling each other's presence from a gameplay perspective. But then we've also got a huge number of things like chat is shared across the two games. So if I'm chatting on my PS3, my buddy in a spaceship, he's going to be seeing that as well and say, hey, I need an orbital strike, I need some help down here, and vice versa. The economies are linked, the markets are linked. It's really two games in one universe, all happening at the same time. It really is just one universe being brought together through two different games.
And then we have moment-to-moment gameplay interactions as well through the orbital bombardment. So Eve players can shoot down on the planets and kill Dust players, but vice versa as well. So Dust players are able to shoot up and blow up Eve ships. And of course, you need to have a fleet, in space, and it's probably going to be countered by an enemy fleet, and so it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens with that level of interaction. And then, of course, smack talking local.
It's going to be there.
Yeah, it's going to be there.
Okay, well, touching on that brings me to the next question. For players that are interested in the games you put out, in general, are you worried about the migration of players from one of your games to the other in terms of taking a hit in population, or do you expect it to be pretty balanced and that players who are playing one will continue to play that as well as playing the other?
I'm not worried about it. I mean, we see already, we have some of the really big corporations in Eve. They get ready for a big space battle, and maybe during that preparation phase, or immediately afterwards when the actions sort of slow down. We see them right now. They go off and they play other first-person shooters, and they're all as their Eve. As their group of Eve buddies, they're already playing these other games. So actually, what they're going to be able to do now is to experience that other game style. But still within the Eve universe, so something that's still meaningful in their gameplay. And I mean, already we've got a lot of people in the closed beta who are Eve players right now. So I think there'll be a lot of crossover, but I don't think it'll kind of cannibalize sort of either of the groups. What we're actually hoping is that people do want to come and experience both games, because there's more than enough time, there's more than enough space for them to play both, and I think they'll get a really good experience out of doing that.
Okay, well, I'm sure everyone's wondering, will Eve corporations and Dust corporations be on the same level in terms of manufacturing strength? Will they be viable against each other, or is one going to sort of dwarf the other?
Well, they are the same thing. So corporations in Dust are the same as corporations in Eve. You might have Dust-only corporations or Eve-only corporations, but it's more likely that you'll have a mix of Dust players and Eve players, because there are certain things that the Dust players can do that the Eve players cannot. For example, if an Eve corporation, let's say, wants to claim a planet, they have to use Dust players. And at some point it becomes economically sane and viable to just have your own Dustmercs produce your own Dust gear, that kind of stuff.
So, and you know, we're starting out in kind of baby steps. So, you know, as we start out, there'll be a degree of separation, but the intention is that these will be exactly the same kind of organisations. Obviously, you can do some things in Dust that you can't do in Eve and vice versa. But the key thing about our games really is that you enable people to have these meaningful interactions with each other, and so putting in a separation actually is kind of counterproductive to what we want to achieve. So, yeah, I mean, you will just have this mix of people doing different roles, different activities in the game, but in the same social structure.
Well, great. It's clear that the two games are very closely entwined. You're currently in a closed beta. When can we expect to see anything close to an open beta or a release date?
We'll be in beta throughout the summer, and yeah, as for release date, soon. It's difficult for us to say exactly the date right now. We need to test the game, we need to ensure that all of these systems, for example, faction warfare, and how all that goes when we roll it out to the beta community.
I mean, no one's ever done this before, so there isn't a rule book that we can read that says, okay, you have a beta this long, and then okay, at this length of time afterwards you launch. We've got to be incredibly careful. So Eve's a 9-year-old game, and it's still growing. It's been growing every year, and we have to be very careful that we don't throw too big a rock into that pond and potentially ruin the game. So we've got a number of different stages where we can actually gauge the impact of Dust. We've got a lot of dials that we can tweak to make sure that these two games coexist in the same universe, you know, really well together. But we, to a certain extent, just have to do it and see, and we don't know it.
Throw it out there.
Yeah, roll it out and see what happens, and that may, you know, that means that setting a particular date is tricky because we're not going to roll out something which isn't awesome. So.
Okay, gentlemen. Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing how these games coexist in the future.